Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of D&D Horror Stories. In today's video, we have a tale about a player that turns on the party and then makes outlandish demands of the DM. A story about one of the most toxic Dungeons & Dragons tables I've ever heard of, and more. But first, do you have a story that you would like to see on the channel? Be sure to post it to the D&D Doge subreddit, and who knows, it may just end up in a video. But with that said, let's get into these stories. Player joins the BBEG, Am I the Asshole? By Reddit user, D&D Throwaway. I'm DM for a group of friends, and we've been meeting a few times for a month for over 2 years now. A major part of the campaign is about an eldritch god trying to rule the world and reshape it to his vision. The party has been attempting to prevent the old gods from returning and destroying their home. You know, generic homebrew stuff. The party consists of a gnome wizard, half-elf wizard, human fighter, dwarf cleric, and a half-orc warlock, our problem player. Their adventure took them to an ancient temple, where a scholar has been researching evidence of the eldritch god's existence. After deciding to team up with the scholar, they fight their way through the temple. It was an underground temple filled with burrowing monsters. When they reach the main chamber of the temple, they find an ageless paladin guarding an ancient glyph carved into the wall. Up until this point, everything had been going smoothly, and the party had been working together for a while. However, once they reached the main chamber, the scholar revealed himself to be a disciple of the Great Old Ones, and turns on the party. I had an awesome fight planned, where they would team up with the paladin to stop the scholar, and then they would learn new information from him to help in their quest. This is where the problem player becomes a problem. He decided that, since he has a pact of the Great Old Ones, that his character would side with the scholar and help him kill the paladin. Even though when he and I discussed his pact during Session 0, he claimed that his character regretted making the pact and is on a quest for redemption. This, of course, changed the fight dramatically, and the player shouted, in character, at the warlock to stop, as he ended up killing the paladin and escaping with the scholar by casting Dimension Door straight up above ground. I informed the player that his actions would lead to him having to roll a new character, as his old character is now working with the BBEG. But he doubled down and claimed that it's right for his character, and that I need to figure out how to make it work so he can go on a separate adventure with the scholar while the party tracks him down, and then disconnected. I ended the session there. The cleric approached me afterwards and said that her character would see the warlock as the enemy with her black and white thinking, and that she won't be willing to accept the character back into the party. I then told the warlock that they would not be getting a side adventure, and that they would have to create a new character if they wanted to continue playing with the group. He's upset because he considered it an amazing character moment and could not wait to continue his story. Am I the asshole for shutting down his roleplay and forcing a new character? TLDR. Party finds an old temple, warlock kills NPC and flees to join the BBEG, and I force him to make a new character. Edit. Thanks to everyone who responded. I got some validation and some insight into the player and character. I'm going to work with the player to try to keep the warlock story going in the background, not played, just discussed, so they have a sense of what he's doing and where he's going. In the meantime, it turns out that the half-orc warlock has a twin brother with a mustache, Ogner the Barbarian, who is going to be joining the party to find his missing brother. I liked the idea that some of you mentioned, where I give control back to the player during fights and interactions with the party, and we'll see if he can handle that without throwing another wrench into the system. Well, I would like to say first that OP was not the asshole here. That player agreed with DM that while his character was in a pact with the old ones, that the character was on a redemption arc. For the player to up and join the BBEG goes against that notion, so that kind of threw a wrench in OP's plans there. And for the player to then demand that OP take the extra time to run a side story with that character at the same time as the main group's story is what I would say makes that player the asshole, not OP. But at least it sounds like everyone came to some sort of agreement in the end by talking things out. Hopefully, that player can see that he was kind of in the wrong there and learn from the whole thing. Though, what are your thoughts? Let's move on. Dating the DM of the Toxic Table by Reddit user Kindly Committee 6547. So I've been running games for 10 plus years and have been a moderator of servers and ran 2 living communities. I've seen a lot. I'll maybe do a write-up later, but here's a story from 15-ish years ago from a real-life game that lasted for over 2 years. The cast, and more will come later, but these are the starters. Me, a lot less confident than I am now. Cringe, started off nice, but perpetually awkward. X, angry power player. And Clueless, a nice guy, but oblivious. For openness and context, before this story, I went on 2 to 3 dates with Cringe. I think we kissed once. It didn't fit. He turned it off because he wasn't comfortable being with someone who had dated more than him. There was no hard feelings, and we remained friends. So, my friend Clueless and I were talking to a guy, X, a friend of a friend, after a party, and he mentioned that he ran games. We both love tabletop RPGs, so we asked to join. He asked us to get together a group for Shadowrun, so I invited Cringe, who really wanted to try games. We spun up our characters, and all was good. The games were going well. It was a bit grim rough, but it's Shadowrun, mostly fighting a low-level gang and a territory war. So I end up getting a crush on X, Sumi. We vibe for a while during sessions and hang out after. So after a while, after we completed taking out a small gang and are about to start a new thing, in order to hang out more with him, I decide to make a new character, during which we end up dating. He also offers to send off my first character. At this time, once Cringe found out that X and I were dating, he told me that he was still into me. I politely told him that it wasn't happening, and I figured that that was that. Then came the first red flag from X. He spends an hour describing in detail that the first character killed herself in an accident by being stupid and dumb, against everything that happened before. He actively encouraged everyone to laugh at her and loot her body, but like I said, it's Shadowrun. Also, X started showing some behavior at home, but he had some real life things happen, so I excused it. It also made him unable to run games anymore. So, Clueless offered to run D&D. I think 3rd edition or maybe 3.5. Whatever, we played in 2010-ish. We all made characters at Cringe's house. This was rare and important because Cringe offered to show me the smoking area away from everyone else, and then he made a pass at me. I told him no again and just brushed it off. X made an insane build, cut together from old forum guides and D&D magazines. An edgy min-maxed ranger who was only there to do damage. Clueless didn't want to say no, so he let this monstrosity pass for table happiness. Though that did not satiate X. X got hyper-combative at the table all of a sudden, always telling other people what they did wrong, always trying to push past anything that wasn't combat. It was a dungeon crawl, but still, there were like traps and investigations to do. He's making Clueless's life hell. He fights him on every ruling, checking source books like it's a mission from God. And then there's Cringe. Cringe decides that he has a way to get me back. He decides to start taking pictures of my cleavage and sending me them. What? I try to ignore them, and we try to push through. X becomes more and more awful at home, and it starts showing at the table. Fast forward a few months, and it's horrible. The game, full on, went off the rails. We spend at least half the session with X fighting Clueless on every single thing. When he's not doing that, he is berating other players, specifically me. My character is not built right. I'm the wrong domain. I'm not healing enough, specifically him. I need to wade into combat with him and heal him more, even though we had a tanky paladin, so his ranger did not need to be on the front lines. And I mean full on yelling at me at the table in front of my friends. Cringe, at this point, is just sending me 5 to 10 explicit and emotional messages a session that I ignore. And I'm now spending way too much game time going out to smoke to try to calm down. Then Clueless has an idea. He suggested that we bring in a new player. We will call this new player Chill. Chill was a friend of Clueless and I, a cool dude, and he rolls up a nice support caster. Mechanically, it helps a lot, as the weight of helping the team isn't all on me anymore. But he kinda quickly realizes that the issue here is more social than gameplay. First, he talks to Cringe alone, since they had never met before. I have no idea what happened, but Cringe never came back or messaged me again. You're the real MVP, Chill. With one down, he hoped things would be better. They were not. At this point, I finally said what Cringe had been doing, and X lost it. He completely rages at the table and at home. Things got very, very bad. Playing was out of the question, as every session was just him berating me or making fun of Cringe for hours. It made everyone else uncomfortable and miserable too. So, Chill brought out the big guns and invited another dude. We will call this guy Dad. Not my real dad, but a game dad to us all. You know the type. Been playing since the start, but isn't gatekeepy or weird. Just a nice guy who wants to share the hobby. He and I knew each other for some years, and he really did look out for me. He says that he won't play, but he will talk to us. Well, he pulls me aside first, and after hearing the basics of just the table, he tells me that I talk about D&D like it's an abusive husband, and that he's genuinely worried. So, I end up spilling the stuff at home and what else had been happening. After this, he tells Clueless to shut down the game, that this was not okay, etc. I believe Clueless and Chill start up another game with some other friends after this. Dad ends up helping me leave the relationship later, which was its own whole thing. In the long run, I honestly don't think any of this was about me. I think I somehow ended up the token or pawn in some territorial contest of sorts. One nice thing is, now I'm really good at spotting and shutting down problem behavior. It's why I ended up moderating and running so many things. So, thanks guys? TLDR. Date the DM, he turns out to be toxic. Another player gets creepy jealous, so we need 2 mediators to shut it down. Yeah, that was definitely a bad place to be, and not just in a D&D context. Honestly, the moment Cringe began sending OP pictures of her own cleavage, that should have been the moment that whole thing was shut down. Like, seriously, what the fuck? Then it sounded like X was just using D&D to take out his real-life frustrations out on OP. I would say that OP should have shut all this stuff down, but like she said, she didn't really know how to stand up for herself back then. Thank God Chill and Dad came into the picture to help her get out of that whole ordeal, and OP has since learned not to take crap from anyone. Let's move on. And before we get into the next one, Nipsey has something to ask.
Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I really like this pillow.
Thanks, bud. I hope they do. Now, let's get into today's final story. Is my first D&D campaign turning into a horror story? By Reddit user Eastern Geologist 901. So, I'm new to D&D, and I found out that on a Discord server I'm in, there was an ongoing D&D campaign, so I decided to join in. The DM told me that this new season of the campaign was focused more on roleplay than combat, and that it would be more in depth of character backstory. Apparently, I joined in a point where the party have to fight an entire undead infection caused by the vegetation, so the only NPCs left were some military and some vendors, as every civilian died. This session chronologically happened 2 weeks after that event, and the party went to a casino to pass the time. But when one of our party members lost in a bet against the casino boss, the boss turned them into a statue. We tried to reason with him, but it was useless, and combat started. The casino boss got 20 in every roll, and every time we wanted to attack him, the DM would ask us to choose heads or tails, and then flip the coin. If the coin landed on the wrong side, the attack not only failed, but it would magically hit another party member. We never managed to hit him, so we started using our heads to see why. We tried high insight checks, or using Zone of Truth to make him say it, but it didn't matter. We started trashing his casino as a way to try to damage him, but we got defeated. At least the boss gave us our friend back, and as we walked away, he started talking with some entity that was depicted as the God of Chaos. It turns out that the boss always rolled 20s because of a boon received by this deity that would make him shift reality however he wanted. I say this because he asked the Chaos God about one of our party members, and the god proceeded to reveal all of their backstory to him. So he is now a constant antagonist that we can't hit or even try to win against, and it's constantly plotting against our group. 2 members ended up leaving after that session. I honestly had some fun with previous sessions, but no one had fun in this one. And when we complained after the session, the DM just said, "I still kicked your asses 12 days to Sunday." I honestly don't know if I want to stay in the campaign or just leave. TLDR, I got into my first D&D campaign, and the DM made an entire Diabolus Ex Machina as an antagonist. Honestly, I would take a cue from those other 2 players that left after that, and leave as well. That whole situation of the DM basically putting you into a fight with an enemy that had no chance of failing a hit, with the whole 2-faced coin flipping thing to see if you hit, and then proceed to brag about kicking all of your butts, just tells me that this DM wants to win D&D, and just wants to drag you all on a railroad. One commenter on the post said something that I completely agree with, that the DM is basically playing D&D like Star Trek, where every episode has Q in it, and he hates you. So yeah, I would say leave that game and find a new one to play in. But that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may all of your rolls be natural 20s. Until next time.